Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Here I am with another video. This time I'm doing winter 2021 and this is paper 3, which is data analysis, which is spreadsheets and web authoring. Before we begin, just want to remind you, please subscribe to my channel. Yeah, it would be great if you could support the channel if you find the content useful. Like the video and send me a comment as well, letting me know what you liked and maybe what I can improve on or what things you would like me to do or to cover in future videos. That would be really useful for me. Let's get started. So the first thing to note is that this is a list of your source files that you should have in one folder, which is your source files folder, and really important, especially for web authoring and for spreadsheets as well, that you have all these files together so that when you are referencing certain files, the master file can find the other files that you've referenced really easily, and you'll see how this works a bit later on. So then the first thing that we're asked to do in this question is to create a new word process document for our evidence document, and we need to make sure our details are on every page of the document, so either in the header or footer, and we need to save this as N21 evidence underscore your center number underscore your candidate number. So it should look like this, and this is where we're going to put all our screenshots. That's what we're told. So we'll go ahead and do that first. So I've gone ahead and I've opened up a blank Word document, and then I need to open the header or the footer. I'm going to put my details in the footer, so I just double clicked at the very bottom of the page, and then I go to footer and I put in three sections with the placeholders, 3 placeholders, and I need to put in my name, and I need to put in my candidate number and my center number. And then double click off of that, and this is now ready. Now you can put in headings for each of your evidence, so you can put in evidence 1. It's always good, it's a good idea to do that if you have time, of course, because then the person marking your paper will see clearly which evidence links to which question. So that's always useful. Then we need to save as, so file, save as, and I'm going to go ahead and save this in my folder as a Word document. So it's called N21 evidence underscore candidate number underscore center number. So that's how we would save it. So now that's ready for our screenshots. So the next part of the question, which is task 2, we're now starting the main part of the paper, the spreadsheets part of the paper. So this first paragraph here, I'm going to read and pick out the key things because it's important that you note some information in here. So it says you work for a company planning to recycle plastic waste washed up on the beaches of many islands in the Maldives. You will create a spreadsheet to calculate the cost of a return journey from the recycling centre to an island to collect the plastic waste. So that's important to note what the overall function of this spreadsheet is. We're calculating the cost of the journey from the recycling centre to the island to collect the rubbish. All the currency values must be in US dollars displayed to 2 decimal places. So that's also important to note. We'll need this information later, so we might need to refer back to this paragraph later on. Now it says for step 1, open and examine the file n21islands.csv, so that's a comma separated values file, a generic file format that can be opened in spreadsheets and various other software. This file will be used to provide data for your spreadsheets, and the data must not be copied or the file changed. So automatically this tells me that this file is not our main file. This is where we're going to get information from. So we might be doing some lookup functions to copy data from the island spreadsheet to another spreadsheet that is actually where calculations take place. So we can pick out information as we're reading the question. Then it says, open and examine the file n21cost.csv in your spreadsheet. And then it tells us we need to place in the footer, right aligned, the text, cost prepared by, followed by a space, your name, centre number and candidate number, then a space followed by on, followed by a space, and today's automated date. So we've got to put a footer in with this format. And it should look like this down here. So we've been given an example. So I'm going to go ahead and open the spreadsheet. We'll get started with that. So here is the cost spreadsheet, and this is the one that we're going to be putting our information in. Before we start, I'm just going to open up these columns just by double clicking between the letters here, just so they're appropriately spaced. Now you can't see the footer or header here, so what I normally do is change the view to page layout view down here at the bottom. You can change the view, and then I'll be able to see the header and footer. And then if I just scroll down, I can get to my footer. So here is the footer at the bottom of the page, and we've been asked to put in the right hand section the text, costs prepared by. So I'll just start writing that. And a colon and a space followed by your name, followed by, now I need to refer back to the question because I can't remember it all. So space, your name, centre number and candidate number, then a space followed by on, and a space and the automated date. So we need to put in candidate number, centre number, and a space followed by on, and another space followed by the automated date. So here is the icon that allows us to put the current date in there, and whatever the date is on the date you print the document will appear here. And if we click off of that, you can see it's put in today's date on there, the date I've created this video, and that's what should be there. So now for step 2, it says insert 2 new rows above row 1, and we need to merge the cells A1 to C1 and enter this text, cost of plastic removal for 1 island. And it says we need to format the merged cell A1 to C1 to contain white 26-point text on a dark blue background. So I'm going to insert 2 rows here. So I'll just highlight rows 1 and 2, right click, insert, and then there's the 2 rows. So I need to merge cells A1 to C1, which is those 3 cells. Let's merge and center, and then I've got to put in the text, cost of plastic removal for 1 island. If it gets a little bit distracting having the headers and footer there, you can take it back to a normal layout. So it's like this, and then we need to format this cell that we've merged so that the text is white and the background color, which is this icon here, the fill color, is dark blue. So it's like this, and the text should also be 26. So there's that so far. I'm just going to go back to the question. So then it says format the spreadsheet to look like this. So if we have a look, the text, cost of plastic, is on one line, removal for 1 island is on the other line. And if we look here, cell A is slightly wider than B and C. So B is quite narrow, C is a bit bigger. And also if you look, 1 is quite wide, so we need to increase the height of this row, and we need to adjust these. And we also need to do something called text wrapping, where the text is able to go onto a second line. Also that will help for it to look like this. And then we have other formatting to do as well in the rest of this spreadsheet example we've been given. So I'm going to start by formatting the section here, A1 to C1. So like I said, so as you can see, A is okay. We can make B a little bit bigger and C a little bit bigger to kind of match the question, but we also need to select wrap text like that, and we also need to bring the height down like that. Now that's still, so cost of plastic should be on one line. Now if that happens, you can just use your space bar to adjust it so that the text is separated like that. So I put a little gap in there so that the text looks as it should. And we can go back to the question paper and have a look. So I think that should be centered vertically as well. If you look, that looks like it's centered vertically, and the text is centered in the cell, which is fine. Yeah, because there's not an even gap between the top and bottom. So we need to vertically center that. So if we select the cell, which I've already done, and right click, and then go to Format Cells, and then you've got number, you've got alignment, font, and so on. So you could do some of the formatting in here, but what we're going to do is we're going to vertically align this to the center, and horizontally it's already to the center, and that will just move that up as it should be. I might move that down slightly and close up cell 2, row 2. That's supposed to be a little bit closed up like that. And then we can just play around with that a little bit, just to make sure that looks how it should. Now, this text here is supposed to be right aligned. So we'll do that, and the rest of it is as it is. Let's just double check that. Yes. So I just want to make sure I've done it all accurately. Okay, now question 4, it says, in cell B12, enter a function to look up. So we're using a lookup function, which is what we kind of guessed when we read the question to start with. The name of the island, so we're looking up the name of the island using the code entered in cell B11. So B11 is our lookup value, and we're going to extract the name. So we need to have both our spreadsheets now open. And what I normally do when I'm doing a lookup function is I go to View, and I arrange the cells, make sure both the spreadsheets are open, and then you can arrange them vertically. That's what I need to do here. So they should be side by side like this, which makes it much easier to see what you're working with. So this is the island spreadsheet that we were told has the data that we're going to use. And I'm going to go ahead and open the columns appropriately so I can see everything. So we have a code. We have the name of the island, which is what we need to move over, extract into our spreadsheet. We have the atoll and the distance from the recycling plant. So this is the information that we're going to be using. And I just want to double check what cell. So in B12, we need to put our lookup function to find the name using B11. So I'm just going to keep both of these open. So in B12, which is here, it says island name. So we're going to put in our lookup function. So just to make this really clear for you, I'm going to open the function arguments, or the insert function pane. Now we need to decide which kind of lookup function we're going to use first of all. So this is arranged in columns. It's not arranged in rows, this table. So we're using a vertical lookup, or a VLOOKUP, which is here. So I'll open that. And then we've been given, it's very clear like this if you open the function arguments window. We've been given the lookup value here goes first, and we've been told that that's B11. So we click on that. The table array, this is where we're looking for the name, the island name. So we're going to select the table from here. And this is why arranging both the spreadsheets like this makes it much easier to do your equations like this. The column index number is the column that we're getting the information that we need from. So our column index number, the name is column 2, so we put in a number, not the letter. And then the range lookup, this is whether we want Excel to make an estimation of what information we need or put in the exact information that we need. So we want to put in false here, so that we're given an exact match. So it gives you an explanation down here. So true would mean that it gives you an estimation based on the criteria you've given. Or if you put in false, that it will give you an exact match. So that's that. So it's now put in the name there for this. And if we just test it out and we put in change the value, it should now change the name, which it has done, and we can check that here. So T1 is this name here, so we know that that's working as it should be. And we're going to keep open, and I'm going to widen this slightly. We're going to keep open our lookup spreadsheet for the duration of the question. So let's have a look at the next question. So we've done that one. In cell B13, enter a function to look up. So another lookup again. This time we're looking up the distance of the island from the recycling plant. So should be similar to what we've just done. So let's have a look. So we'll open both. So in B13 this time, we've got to put in the distance. So let's have a look. So this is the distance from the recycling plant. And we can use the same code as our lookup value. So we're going to do exactly the same thing. Click in the cell that we're going to put the function in. We know that this is a VLOOKUP because we're using the same lookup table to get the information, but it's just different information this time. Our value is the island code, same as before. Our table array is also the same. So we're going to select our table array the same as before. And then the column index number has changed. So this time it's 1, 2, 3, and 4. So it's the distance this time. So we put that in, and again, we want an exact match. So that's it. So it's the same process as the first one. So now it's putting the distance from the recycling plant. And again, we could check that. So I could put in T8. Let's try T8. So the name's changed and the distance has also changed there. I'll change it back. And then it says in cell B14, enter a formula. So we need to put in a formula this time to calculate the total distance to the island and back. So the total distance travelled to the island and back. So totals, normally when I see totals, it's addition. So let's have a look at the spreadsheet to see what information they provided. So to the island and back. So that tells me, obviously, that's a round trip. So B14. So the distance from the recycling plant is 75 miles. If you're doing a return journey there and back, then we're going to be multiplying this by 2 because this is the distance of one journey. So if we go in here now and we put in the equal sign, which tells Excel we're doing a calculation, and we select the distance from here and multiply that by 2. That gives us a calculation there and back. So that's that one, pretty straightforward. That was only worth 1 mark, so it tells us that that is only a very straightforward calculation. Okay, so we're on step 7 now, and it says in cell B15, enter a formula to calculate the number of hours the return journey will take. The return journey will take. This is calculated as return distance divided by operating speed times the contents of B6. So we need to do the multiplication calculation first and then divide by the return distance. And it says we need to round this time up to the nearest whole hour. So I automatically think I could use a function here to round up the calculation that I do. So what I would do is nest this calculation here within a round up function. So we get this calculation done and then it will automatically be rounded up. We don't have to do that ourselves. So I'm going to go ahead and have a look at that now. Okay, so the return distance is here. So that goes in our calculation and we're dividing that by, and we need to put in brackets because the calculation that we're going to do is multiplication. So it's operating speed multiplied by the contents of B6. And that has given us our calculation there. and we're rounding up to the nearest whole number, so we want this to be 0. So it's rounded that up to 9. So that's what we need to do there. And it's automatic, because we're using the round up function, of course, it's rounded up for us automatically. So that's that there, done. Okay, so now we're on step 8, and it says in cell B16, enter a formula to calculate the fuel used for the journey. This is calculated as return journey time times fuel consumption. So return journey time is in B15. So we're going to put equals in, because we're doing a simple calculation here. And we need to put in the asterisk symbol or the star times fuel consumption, which is in B4. And that's our fuel used for the journey. It doesn't say we need to round up in that one, so we can move on. And then it says in cell B17, enter a formula to calculate the fuel cost for the journey. So let's have a look. So we've got the fuel used for the journey is there, and we've got the fuel cost per litre as $1.12. So our journey, the fuel used was 925.2 litres. So we need to just multiply the fuel used by the actual cost of the fuel. So that's B16 multiplied by B3, and that gives us how much the fuel cost in total for that one. And then it says for step 10, in cell B18, enter a formula so that if, okay, so this is an if, I reckon, already. If the return journey time is less than 10 hours, it displays the value 4. So this, what we need to look at is the return journey time. So let's have a look at our spreadsheet. So we're evaluating this cell and looking at this value here in hours. So if that is less than 10, it should display 4 in cell B18. If it's greater than or equal to 10 and less than or equal to 15, a 6 should appear in cell B18. And if that return journey time is greater than 15 hours, it displays the value 9. So what I'll do, just to make this a little bit easier, is I will deal with the less than 10 and then the greater than 15. And then after that, all I'll be left with is the values that are in between, because they are from 10 and above, or 15 and below. So they'll automatically be the only values left if I deal with this first, and then this, and then that will be at the end by default. So let's have a look at how we're going to do this. So we need to go into B18, and we need to open the insert functions pane and open an if, the function arguments for an if statement. So our test is on the return journey time. So we're doing if B15, so you can see up here it's already put if, and in brackets B15 is less than 10. Okay, so we put the less than symbol and 10. If that's true, and that's currently true because the return journey time is 9, so that's automatically going to return a 4. So the value, if that's true, will go as a 4, and that's what's going to appear in the cell. If we click off of that, that's what would happen. Now we need to deal with the other two criteria, which means we need another if statement. So we put in if, and we need to open brackets. We're starting a brand new if statement. So again, we're testing B15. We always start with the test first. And this time, remember I said I'm going to deal with the greater than 15, and then by default, the middle values will be dealt with. Much simpler way of doing things. Rather than trying to deal with these tests in order, you'll end up having to put in various symbols in there, greater than and equals to, and it just takes more brain work. This way it's much easier if it's possible. So this is, sorry, I've forgotten again, greater than 15, greater than 15, and then we have to put a comma to say what the value will be, so it will be a 9, and then everything else should display a 6. So again, we put another comma. So this is the components of the if is the test, the value if true, which is 9 in this case, and the value if false, in this case would be a 6, and then we close the brackets. You must make sure you close the brackets, otherwise you'll get an error. And that's it. So for step 11, it says in cell B19, enter a formula to calculate the cost of the crew for the return journey. So we're looking at the crew now. Each journey will have 2 crew members paid at crew rate A. So 2 members are always paid at crew rate A. It's important to note that, I think. And the other crew members will be paid at crew rate B. So let's have a look at how we're going to tackle this. So we're going to be in B19, the cost of crew. So here is the number of crew for this particular journey, which is 9 hours at the moment. So we've got 4 crew. So 2 of those crew have to be paid with crew rate A, and the rates are up here. So we've got $8 for crew rate A and $4 for crew rate B. So we need to make sure we have 2 staff that are paid $8, and whoever's left gets paid $4. And then we need to factor in the journey time as well, because they're getting paid per hour. So this journey was 9 hours, so that will then be multiplied by however much the rates are. So let's go into this cell, and we're going to put in an equals, and the first thing I'll do is we'll find out, so we need to put in, we always know 2 members of staff are always paid at crew rate A, so we can do 2 times crew rate A, so that's the first calculation. So that's dealt with the crew rate A staff. Now we need to add those staff that are in crew rate B. So we need to add, and we're going to need to use some brackets here. So we're going to add, so I'm going to put brackets here. And we're going to add up whoever is left. Now, we're going to have to subtract 2 from this number, because no matter what this number is, we always know that 2 of those staff will be paid at crew rate A and the rest will be paid at crew rate B. So the most sensible thing to do, I'm going to use another bracket, is take this and take away 2 from that. So that will give us whoever's left. In this case, it's 2 and 2, but it might not always be. If it's a longer journey, we might have 6 staff, 6 crew, in which case 4 members of staff will be paid at crew rate B, and the 2 will always be paid at crew rate A. And then we've got to multiply this number here by crew rate B. So whatever's in here is going to be multiplied by crew rate B. Okay, so far the first thing that's going to happen is the crew rate, number crew will be subtracted by 2, and then that value will be added to whatever this rate is here. So it will be multiplied by this and then be added to this rate here. So let's just close those brackets. And then remember, we need to multiply this whole number that we get after these calculations are done by the journey time. So I'm going to put that here. So the journey time multiplied by those values there. Just making sure I've put all the parentheses in. So that's the cost of the crew there. So that one's done. And then the next thing we need to do is in B20, enter a formula to calculate the total cost of the journey, which includes fuel, crew, and port taxes. So that seems like it's just a simple addition. Let's have a look. So if we go to total cost, we've got the cost of the crew, the cost of the fuel, and the port taxes. So these 3 we need to add together. So if we put an equals here, that one plus the fuel costs plus port taxes. So that gives us the total cost of the journey there. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is apply appropriate formatting to cells containing numeric values in the spreadsheet. So first thing we know is that the costs should be in dollars. Now I've already done mine, but I'll show you how to do it. So I'm just going to click on this cell. If you go to the home tab and number, you have, because it's in dollars, it's quite easy to find. You have dollars in United States, then it will automatically put that to 2 decimal places, which is what we need for that. So that's that question. And then it says we need to save our spreadsheet. So I'll just go ahead and save now. And then it says we need to print our spreadsheet showing the formulae. Make sure the row and column headings are displayed, grid lines are displayed, the page orientation is in landscape, and the cells are fully visible and can easily be read. Really, really important that your formulae are all fully visible. I've marked many papers where students submit their work and the formulas are not fully visible. So if we look here, now, one thing I'd recommend, because I closed the table array that we were using for our lookup function, the file path is a lot longer than I would like, but nevertheless, we still need to work with that and make sure that this is fully visible. If you leave the files open and don't close them when you finish with them, what will happen is this file path will probably be half the width that it is for my question, which will make it much easier for you to then make sure everything's fully visible. But if you just double click between the letters, the cells will open appropriately. So let's go to the print dialog. So print, file print. And then we need to change the orientation to landscape. And then if we go to page setup, we want this at 1 page wide by 1 page tall. And if we go to sheet, we need grid lines and row and column headings as well. Okay. So I just changed it to, I'll show you what I did. So I clicked on page setup, and in the page tab, fit to 1 page wide by 1 page tall. And then it will be on 1 page wide there. And you can see the formulas there quite clearly. When that's printed, it will be clear. So that's your first printout. And then for step 15, it says we need to print the spreadsheet showing the values this time, so not formulas. It should be on a single portrait page. Row and column headings should not be displayed, nor grid lines, and everything should be fully visible again. So we're going to go back in and remove our formulas, or not show them, I should say. And then I'm adjusting these columns just as I did when the formulas were there. And I'll go to the print dialog again. And this time, okay, I can see, I just want to go up to the heading row because I want to make sure that this is formatted as it should be. So remember, this should be cost of plastic on the first line, then removal for one island should be on the next line. So you want to make sure that that is as it should be. And then if I go to file and print, yeah, that looks fine to me. We need to remove the grid lines. So if I go to sheet, it should be portrait as well. So I'll change that there. Sheet, remove the grid lines, remove the row and column headings. And here it is. So that will be your second printout. And then we have to change the data to calculate the cost of plastic removal from the island with the code G5. So we need to change M1 to G5, and then that will change the island and the other values. And then we need to print this as well. So we've got to print it, portrait, no row and column headings, and everything fully visible again. So that'll be the same as the last one. So we go to file, print, exactly the same as before, and all the formatting is the same. It's just that the data would have changed because we changed the code for the island. Okay, so now we're on step 17, and it says open and examine the file n21chart.csv. So let's have a look at that. So this is the file here. So it has atolls, and it has the names of each atoll. An atoll is like a group of small islands. And then we have the average distance, which is currently blank. And it says cells B2 to B10 must calculate the average distances from the recycling centre to the islands in each atoll, rounded to the nearest mile. Enter a formula in cell B2 that displays the average distance for the islands in the first atoll, and then replicate this formula into cells B3 to B10. And then it says create and fully label an appropriate chart to display this data and save your spreadsheet. So we need to find the distances, the average distances for each atoll. So this information is not in our costs spreadsheet. So if we have a look at our island spreadsheet, which we used earlier on, you'll see the atoll, the name of the atoll and which islands are within that atoll, and the distance for each of the islands within the atoll from the recycling plant. So we're going to be using these distances here and finding the average for each one. So this is all the distances within this atoll Garfu, and we need to find the average for those. So this is what we need to do. So we have to use this spreadsheet to put the averages into our chart spreadsheet over here. So they'll be going into B2 to B10. Now, I'm just going to arrange these vertically. So now, with this, we need to not only do an average function, but we need to do average if, because there's criteria that we need to look for. We need to look for the name of the atoll and then average every single distance that matches our criteria, in which case the name of the atoll. So we're going to use average if here. We also need to round this to the nearest mile, so we're going to have to use the round function as well. It doesn't say to round up, it just says to round, so we'll use the round function also. So a couple of things that we need to do here. So I'm going to start in B2 and I'm going to open the effects button, and we're going to use, we'll do the average if first so you can see that clearly, and then we'll round it after. So you've got two ranges in an average if and criteria. So the first range is where we're going to look for the criteria, in which case that's the names of the atolls. So I'm going to select this column of this table, because this is where we're going to look. And if you notice, there are dollar signs around the cell references of these cells that I've selected. This is what we want, because we don't want these cell references to change when we move our formula or we copy our formula down. So we want them to remain what we call absolute. The criteria now we're going to get from our chart spreadsheets, and that's the atoll name, and that we need to have relative, so or keep relative. So we don't use the dollar signs around that, because when we copy the formula down, we want this criteria to change to A3, then A4, then A5, and so on. The average range is the distances. So we're going to select that range from our table spreadsheet with our data in. And that's it. So you can see automatically that's the average for this atoll called Garfu. So I can press OK there. So we're going to round this still. So we're going to use the round function. So I'll just type in round, and I need to open the brackets. Now the calculation here is the number, as you can see, and then we need to put in the number of digits. Difficult to see the end of the calculation. So if you just scroll across to the end of the calculation, to the end of the bracket, now we can put in a comma and put in the number of digits. We're rounding to the nearest whole mile, so that has to be 0. And we close the brackets there, and that's now been rounded. The average has now been rounded. So we just move our cursor to the bottom right hand corner till it becomes a black cross, copy this down to the others, and now we have the averages for each of those atolls. So we can minimize this. I'm going to open this out again. and go back to the question. It says create and fully label an appropriate chart to display this data. Now for me, what would be appropriate would be a bar chart, I think. So I'm going to select the whole of this data here and go to insert and then go to column here, and as you can see it's put in each of the atolls and it's put a heading in. We need to fully label this, so for me that means we should have axis titles in here. So this one should be distance in miles, and this one should say atoll name. And we could also, if I click back on the chart, put in the data label as well, so you can actually see the value for each of the bars. And that's it. And now what we need to do, according to the question, is, we needed to take a screenshot of the formulae used to calculate the average distances, and we also need to put a copy of our chart into our evidence document. So 2 pieces of evidence we have to put in, and then that's the end of that part of the spreadsheets question. Before I finish, I'll copy the chart over, and then I will show you. We go to formulas. Let me just remove the chart, and then we can go to show formulas, and then we will take a screenshot of this also and put this into our evidence. Okay, so I've put a screenshot. I use the snipping tool and snipped for evidence 1 to show the formulas there. And then for evidence 2, I've put the chart in. I would recommend that you put in the same titles as for the evidences, so that whoever's marking your work doesn't get confused. But that's the end of the spreadsheets part of the question. I hope that was useful. Do let me know in the comments if there's anything else you'd like me to cover. Like the video if it was useful to you, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I will see you in the next video. Good luck with your exams.